You're live.
So let me know when we're starting.
I'll let you know.
Okay.
Oh, we're started.
Oh, okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm glad to be back. We, of course, had to put one in the can so that we could attend Mid-South Meter School. So we did that, and then we were off on some travails. So luckily, we're going to do it live this morning. As you can see, I got a little dinger there up in New. But we'll be all right. I messed up my shoulder, so we'll be all right. I wanted to go ahead and start out by saying that we've really enjoyed doing these things, but more importantly, it's all about safety for us, and making sure people get home to their families. So I'm gonna go ahead and start us out with a prayer, and then we'll get rocking on this thing. All right. Father, thank you so much for this time today. And Lord, I know in my men's group this morning at church, it was awesome. We were talking about just knowing that we've got an advocate out there for us, an intercessor with Jesus. And Father, we also were talking this morning about just how life is just poof. I mean, it can just like a vapor. It talks about in the Bible. So, how are we going to conduct ourselves now? I mean, how are we going to walk now? Are we going to walk and just act like Jesus is just our Savior? And so once He saves us, everything's fine? Or are we going to actually let Him be Lord of our lives and let Him be in control? So that's the tough part. That's the part I know as a man I fight it, because I don't want to give up control and I don't want to be dependent on somebody else. So Father, help us to lean more on You, to be more dependent on You, because who else should we put our lives' hands in? Who else? Who else besides You should we put our life in their hands but You? So thank You so much for today. Thank You so much for what Your Son did that allows this brilliant, perfect process for us to be Christians to happen. If it wasn't for what He did on that cross, none of this would be possible. So thank You for that. And again, thank You for this day today. So all of these things I say and ask according to the will of the one who paid it all, my brother, Jesus Christ. Amen. Cool. All right. What we got today, we're going to do 2021 webinar number 16. We're already up to that, huh? Upcoming schedule. So today we're going to be talking about testing a 5S meter in a swamp. And not the swamp, but a swamp. And so SEC fans will get that. So June 15th, we're going to do part 2. And June 22nd, we'll do part 3 of this. So the agenda for today is we're going to go over the site inspection, the meter assessment, and the test equipment setup. This is, as the title has told you, it's a 5S. Out in a swamp, so we're going to be doing that one, and we're going to do an assessment, the first assessment like we always do. And so here we go. What was the big hit at Mid-South Meter School? And it was, we brought the benches with us, and folks got to see the benches, and it really was they used them in classes, teaching with the classes. And from a personal standpoint, I had a young fellow come up to me, and this makes all this worth it. I've always said it's all about training for me and safety. So I had a young fellow come up to me and just thank me for what we've been doing, the great job that JP and Chris did through all this time, and now I'm just sitting up here in the front running my gums, but all that hard work they do behind the scenes. And the big thing for me is when he said, he says, I've learned a lot from what you've done, and it's probably even helped keep me from getting in a little bit of trouble. And man, that was it for me. I mean, I was done right then. That's all of this is worth it. Like I said, from a safety standpoint, because then I said, yeah, we got to get home safe to our families. And he said, yeah, my little girl's dependent on me. I was done right there. So anyway, we really just we appreciate the attention you've been giving us. We know you're watching these a lot in safety meetings, and not just right now live, but you're watching them a lot. So we just really appreciate the attention you guys are giving us, the support, and the feedback. Thank you so much. I try and let JP and Chris know as much as possible because they're really the brains behind this stuff. So anyway, thank y'all for that. Okay, so today what we've got here, like you can see here, it's going to be a 5S, and then we're going to go over it. I'll do like I always do and stop JP at some points here and talk about some things, and I'll do some drawing up here. I'm going to apologize up front for my left-handed drawing. It's going to be bad. It'll look very Picasso-ish. So anyway, let's go ahead and roll it. So at Powermetrix, we go to any lengths to try and get y'all some training here. So now we're in an area that you can tell, I'm sure JP's got it in the shot right now. This is a marshy area that was just underwater, but luckily it's receded enough so that we can get in here and this was underwater. Now when I say underwater, I drove down that road, all right? And I drove down that road and there were fish swimming in the road. Okay, I'm talking about the water was very, very deep. The entire line of poles down there were all laid over at about a 45-degree angle, all down that whole road right there. Yeah, all of this was completely underwater. So, okay, go ahead. And do some testing and show y'all some inspection work in that, because this is a very interesting service that we've got right here. So what we're going to do is, first of all, we start up at the top of the pole and we look up here, and we've got, if you look up at the top of the pole, we're going to start up at the top. I don't see anything as far as any arcing or too much rust. Do you, Jonathan? As far as anything that makes me about those transformers I don't like.
They've been around a while, but they look good.
Yeah, they've been around a while, but I don't think, okay. I don't see. See, what you're looking for when you're looking at the, and this is, you can see where they've done some painting and stuff right there, but you're looking underneath here, right? You're looking for some deep pitted rust. You're looking for stuff that's not that far from maybe becoming a leak. All right, and you're definitely looking for any kind of arcing up there. We didn't see any of that. So, yeah, these have been out there a while, obviously, and they've been out there in it for a while, but didn't see anything that really jumped out that you would want to report. You got a couple little spots right there, but when we got up there and really looked at them, none of them were deep pitted. We've seen some on other sites where it was deep pitted enough. You would have definitely wanted to let someone know about it, okay? Anything that really needs reporting on anything. If you walk around, you want to walk around and look at all of it. And I don't see... We don't have any arresters that have been blown. We don't see anything like that. You can already tell if y'all are watching from wherever you are that looking at all those conductors running around, it's going to be interesting service up here. So following down our ground, our pole ground is connected over here. You can see the pole ground's connected into the can there. The can secured right here. Now I just did a boo-boo, right? And I know of at least one fellow that's going to call me about it, right, George? So I should not have reached over and touched that can with my bare hand. I should have had my glove on. So that's bad on me. I always call myself out. So that was bad on me. That is not a good safety practice. And please don't you do that, okay? So if you're going to touch that can in any way, you should have a glove on, all right? And I'm calling myself on it. I should have done that there, all right? Thanks, JP. So that's good. We got nothing loose there. But you can see down here, once we get to the bottom of the pole, it got so wet here that the pole was actually leaning over and they had to straighten it up. And in the process, you can notice that they've popped these bands on that conduit going up. You might want to let them know if they wanted to replace those bands right there that they have popped those bands off there trying to get the pole straightened back up again. So, so as far as a pole inspection, I might just let them know about that. We do like the fact that they have weather heads both on that large conduit and then my instrument conduit coming down into my meter can here. So I don't have any openings at the top for anything to get in there. So that looks good. Jonathan's going to have to be pretty skilled to get up there. You can look at those conductors for him to get up there and be able to test this, but we'll get into that here in a minute. So you notice looking at the top off of that bracket up there, I've got two CTs, one on the left, one on the right, and then I got PTs up top. Okay. So you can see here, I've got two CTs, right? And I've got two PTs up here at the top up here. Okay, and I can see that I run my conductors through the CTs here, call those donut CTs. So we run the conductors through there on these, all right? So they're run through there, whereas connections are made through, you can see up here on these PTs sitting up at the top of the bracket. So I got two PTs sitting up here at the top, and I got these two CTs here, okay? Thanks. I got two PTs and two CTs on this service. So then, like we always do, we walk up here and take a look. We'll walk up here and take a look at the meter right here, and it's telling us that this is looking at that left-hand side up there, we can see that that is a 5S. So we got a 5S. Looking over on the right side of the display screen, you can see that it is a Delta, and it's showing 120 on the screen because we do have PT, so it's been PT down to 120. Okay, so it's showing it's a Delta, the 120 because it's PT'd, it is a 5S. so we can see that's what we've got here. So so we're going to open up the, Jonathan's going to open up the face of this thing. We're going to take a look at it, because remember, we think it's a good idea to take both pieces off just for inspection purposes. So he's going to get here and open it up, and I'll go ahead and get my hard hat stuff on. We'll get geared up, all right? But so far, you might mention the brackets. We do like the fact that the weather heads are up there, got everything closed off up top. Nothing really looks too bad. They got a little age on them. We don't see any real underneath here. We don't see any arcing or leaking. So so far, that's probably all we'd report right now. Waiting for the gunfire to erupt. So what are we looking like on the inside?
It's pretty good, not too much corrosion.
No?
Only a little bit of loose and stuff.
Looks pretty good, huh?
Top side's clear, nothing living or making a nest on top.
Yep, no snakes, spiders, bats, nothing like that. No mud daubers. So looking at that test switch, because I know that we can learn a lot from that test switch, what's it telling you about the connections and what kind of service we got here? Okay. So we talk about test switches and the assessment of the test switches, especially if you got to remember we do testing as well. So we go out and we see a lot of strange test switches, so we have to kind of do an assessment to see what we got going on here. This one, they haven't color-coded all the different phases and everything, so they've just got, and you see this a lot, just red for the voltages and then black for the currents. Okay, so looking at this, you've got A, B, and C, right? Voltages, neutral over here. So I got A, B, C, and over here, and then I've got, you can see I've got my currents. So I've got, you can see the little bar. We always talk about this, being able to pick out which one is the shunt, and that bar across there is what stops it, right? So you got shunt blade, return. You can see there where you can put in the alligator clips, the duck bills. So then that tells me shunt return. So I got voltage, shunt return, voltage, shunt return, voltage, shunt return across here. So I'm going A, B, and C phase. This is the way it's looking to me. So when we're looking to do the assessment of this, you get over here to, so I've got my A phase voltage, and I got my A phase currents right here, and I can see my connections there. The B phase is the one that's the key for us for a 5S delta, right? Because we're wanting to see, is it going to be open grounded? So we're wanting to check B phase here. I do have a voltage connected on B phase, but I've got nothing on my currents on B phase, okay? And then once again over here on C phase, I got voltage and current. So I've got, like we had said earlier, I believe he says we've got 3 voltages, but only 2 currents. I've actually got wires from, I'm wired up on 3 of the phases on voltage, A, B, and C here, but as far as on my currents on B phase, I don't have any connections there, so I'm 3 voltages and 2 currents. And this becomes important when we get ready to, and we've talked about this some as well, but we can talk about it again, when you're picking your service types. When you get ready to pick your service types on the machine, that's what it distinguishes the different service types off the number of voltages and currents. So that's why it's important to assess how many voltages and currents you've got, because you can go to a 5S delta on here and it'll have 2 voltages and 2 currents. Well, that's not what you would want. I've got 3 voltages here. Okay, so you got to pick the 3 voltages and the 2 currents. All right. Thanks, Jake.
Let's see, I'm seeing 3 voltages, 2 currents. I know it's a 5S, so we're probably looking at a 4-wire delta.
So by looking at that, Jonathan's saying you got, we're looking right here, and I guess B phase is always the one you take a look at, right? To see what's going on at B phase. Right. So what are you seeing there?
No currents on the B phase switches, but we do have a B phase voltage.
That's right. So that would be 3 voltages and 2 currents.
Right.
Right? So notice the way he initially looked at that, and he said, I'm not seeing anything on currents, but I do have a voltage there on B phase. Because that's the one that always designates what you got going on a 5S, right? Is that B phase. You want to look at that. Is it a B grounded? Is it an open? So you look at it, And we are connected on the voltage, but not on the currents. So we got 3 currents and 2 voltages, okay? All right. And we do have, in this case, we've got the tabs that do have the holes in them. So if you wanted to hook in with your alligator clips, like we said, you could hook in with that. When I'm saying that, I'm talking about right here, the holes in the tabs right here. And we've had that discussion that you can grab with your alligator clips and you grab right there in those holes in the ends of it. And you've got those locking teeth, right, that'll lock in the end of that thing. And it'll hold it in place. And that's the way Jonathan's going to do his here in a second. You'll see that they're pretty secure. But also you could get on the blades if you wanted to as well and coin that surface a little bit and get on the blades. It's your choice, you know, when you go out there, but you can either get on a blade or you can get right there on the end of the tab. If they got those holes in it, it makes it a lot easier. Okay. Alligator clips if you want to that way, or you can get on the blades, either one. We got a little better option there. But remember, if there's those short, thick, stubby ones, some of those older test switches, you definitely want to get on the blades because it's hard to make good contact with those alligator clips, especially if you don't have anything on the end. Those little metal ends get broken off there. So, okay. So Jonathan is saying that this is going to be a 4-wire delta. And looking up at the top, let's go back up here and look at the top again for just a second. We've already been looking up at the top here. And if you look over on the right side, and here's where JP's going to work his magic later, and I'm going to have a screen to point at, and I'll be able to really route things out and look at the cables for you and point them out to you. But if you can pick it up over on the right side over here, we've got our 480. We've got our 480 coming in off there, and it is looped through that right CT. So the 480 is looped through the right CT, and if you look at the left CT over here on the left side of the bracket, that left CT we've crisscrossed A and B phases on the 240 side. So we've got a crisscross of the 240 over here on the left side. Okay. And then so what we've got is, remember, we've got, come over here to the board. Remember, I apologized up front for my drawing. So by looking at that, I've got one CT over here. I got a CT over here, right? And so I've got 2 CTs, so I've got 2 current sources coming down to that meter, right? So we were saying I've got 3 voltages, but only 2 currents because I've only gotten 2 CTs. And you'll hear this a lot over the years. You've heard where they say we're trying to save money and only using 2 CTs instead of 3, whatever. The bottom line for you and I on the testing is what they've done is, you can see they've got over here, you can see actually loop through the 480 side over here. Okay, but over here with these on A and B, oh gosh. Okay, and this would be C. That was bad, wasn't it? Godzilla. Oh man, don't even start on me. That was horrible. Godzilla, that was bad. I don't know if I can do it, B. Okay. Anyway. So I get locked up on that. Okay. So you're coming in here. So what they've done is they've gone one way coming through here, right? With one phase, and they come through here the other way, going the other way. So they're coming 2 different directions through that CT right there, okay? So what we say is we'll hear a lot of summation. It does a summation is what it does, okay? Well, and what it's going to do is, if you think about it, and we'll talk about it here in a second. So what I deal with as a tester, me being out there testing this stuff, what have I got? I've got two different phases, 2 different conductors run through that same CT, but remember, I've got to measure the current through there, that primary current on there with my probes, and I've got choices. You know, I've got my high volt probe, the horseshoe that sticks on the end of the extendo that goes up, and this is overhead, so we're going to have to use that. You also have flexes, right? The flex rings that you can do that way with the flex rings, the red flex rings. Let me grab one real quick. So you got red flex rings, okay, or we've got that high volt probe that goes on the end of it. I'll hang on to this for a second. So if you're using the red flexes here, you got 2 different options, okay? And to me, it's more of a distance thing, okay? Excuse me. Whichever is easiest to get around, depending on how close these 2 conductors are, because remember, these are 2 different ones. This is A, and this is B, right? So I've got to get around both of those somehow, okay? But with the one probe, okay? So if I have a high volt probe, I need to get up there and get on both of them like this, okay? So I want to try and get as close to the CT as possible because my two conductors are as close as possible, right? To be able to get them both up in there. Because remember, a high volt probe has a line right there, and you want to be in this spot right there. That's your sweet spot. So you want to get both those conductors, two lines on that high volt probe beneath there, but inside your window. So you're going to want to get closer to where the two of them are closer together so you can grab around both of them at the same time, okay, with a high volt probe. Now with a flex, and when you grab both of them and you have the high volt probe, remember one's going one direction, one's going the other, so they're both not going to be positive. One of them's going to be positive, one of them's going to be negative. The equipment's going to see it. So it's going to sum the two of them, right, and it's going to come out with a total. And they're going to subtract from one another because they're going in opposite directions. Okay, so in this case, if I wanted to use a flex probe now, I got two different options with a flex probe. And once again, it's distance for me. If I can do a figure 8.
This is going to be great.
No, don't even start me. Man, I should make you do this. Just sitting over here laughing.
I'm sorry, John.
That's okay.
I'm so sorry.
Ow, that hurt. That hurt, dude. That hurt. No, that's all right. No, now, JP. Don't worry about it now. But son of a gun, that hurts. When you turn it like this and do a figure 8, if you think about it, the arrow is going one direction for the top loop and one direction on the bottom loop. So what happens is when you do that, if I figure 8 it here, what am I doing? I'm running it correctly, right? Because if I figure 8 it, and my arrow's going, huh?
That looks good.
That wasn't that bad, was it? Even a blind pig finds an acre nine then. Okay, so A's going through, which way do we have A going? Yeah, so A's going through this way. So if I had my dot going, my arrow rather, going this way at the top, it would go that way at the bottom because I figure 8'd it. So it'd work out perfect. A's coming through the top part in the correct direction. B's coming through the bottom part in the correct direction. Okay, so I can figure 8 it. Now, of course, that shortens it up some. If you think about it, when I did this right here, that shortens it as far as the height of it. You see what I'm saying? So versus if it's open, it's a little bit bigger. So if you can get them through there, that's cool. If not, you can also, similar to what we just talked about the high volt probe, going around both of them and getting a summation of the two, you can do the same thing with a flex. And we actually have this on one of the future videos. You're going to see this. He goes around both of them. Jonathan goes around both of them with a flex, and then it does the same summation. Okay, so you got two different options with the depending on distance and the proximity of the conductors for the flexes. But with the high volt, you got to get them both in there. You only got one shot. You can't figure 8 that high volt probe. Okay. We've got over on the right side, we're looped through, you can see where they've looped it through twice coming off of that 480, okay? And then in between the two, of course, our two PTs sitting up there. So with it being an overhead like this, and Jonathan has why don't you explain to him what you were saying earlier about the difference between figure 8ing, if the service says a figure 8, between using a high volt probe, because here we're going to have to use a high volt probe, right? So we're going to have to use just a high volt probe. So to be able to test this, we gotta get a little creative on our service types, right?
Right. On a crisscross setup, you've got two options. One is to use a flex probe, where you can do a figure 8 to, get the crisscross of what that CT is actually seeing.
Right.
But if you're lucky, you can get right next to the CT, whether it's on the top or the bottom, where those wires are already crisscrossed, and you can still use a flex ring, of course, but you don't have to do the figure 8, or you can use your high volt probe.
That's right. That's right. And there's on one of these other ones that we do that Jonathan did exactly that. If you can, it's going to tell you on that color diagram on the screen. It's going to show a figure 8 on there. Now, if you can figure 8 them, yeah, you'll figure 8 them. But also, if you can get right up next to the CT and my conductors are close enough, you can just wrap it the one time and it'll do a summation of the two. Because remember, one's going in one direction, one's going the other, so they're not going to add together. One of them's going to subtract from the other one, right? Because if they're going in the opposite direction, one is going to be going in the opposite, so it's going to see negative to the other. So in reference to the other, it's going to subtract. So you can go around both of them, or you can figure eight them, and then what happens is if you figure eight them, you want to figure eight it so that if you figure eight, you've got it so that the arrow goes in the correct direction for either one of them, okay? So if you think about it, I've got an arrow and I've got that flex ring, but if I figure eight it, now my arrow's going one way through the top loop and it's going the other way through the bottom one. So you can orient it that way, or I can just run one around both of them, and we've done that on another webinar where Jonathan just looped around both of them right next to the CT, and it was able to sum it up, okay? So in this case though, remember, this is overhead. So we don't have the option of using the flexes. So now we're going to have to use a high volt probe. So if we're going to do a high volt probe, we will have to get them both in there and do the summation, right?
Right.
Right. Okay, cool. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get all the equipment loaded up, and hopefully when we put the equipment on the table, it won't sink down so far that we won't be able to get to it. But so we're going to go ahead and get started on that. So we're at the point now where we've done the assessment. We've looked at everything on the pole there. When I was talking about the bottom of those transformers, you're looking for some really deep pitting there. On the one, it had a spot, you know, but it wasn't too bad. The others were fine. But you're also looking for any kind of arcing up there, blowing a arrestor, something hanging. You know, if you see a bale hanging over, you know, you're looking for things like that up there. And if we didn't see anything, which we didn't hear, those brackets had been popped off when they were trying to straighten up that pole. So, so you could, you know, if you want to report that to them, I mean, you're the eyes and ears of the utility, right? So you're out there on a regular basis, you can just let them know. And that way, at least you let them know and it was on there, right? So we've got our, for the rest of the time here, the 2021 webinar, number 16, I guess. Are you numbering these individually? So 16 is part 1 and then part 2, 17?
Yeah.
Okay. So this will be 16, 17, and 18 will be the swamp series.
Yep.
Right? Cool.
Yep.
So we'll go through the swamp there, and we'll continue with this. You can see we've got it set up now. It's going to be real interesting to see how we have to mess with the service type a little bit on this, and how we have to get up there and make the like I said, we're going to have to get both of those crisscrossed the conductors up there all in that same high volt probe. So so we'll get into the testing, and we'll also get into the connections, and so how we make the connections on swamp part 2.
Hey, speaking of swamps,
You
a college baseball fan?
Yeah.
Do you happen to know what happened with your LSU Tigers last night?
I heard that they beat Oregon.
Mm-hmm. Do you know who they play next?
I heard it might be Tennessee. Is that right?
That's right. Your Tigers will be in Knoxville next weekend.
Boom, 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 boom. But Tennessee's ranked though, right?
3rd in the country.
What?
Yes, sir. They're a good baseball team.
Wow. Okay. Never mind. I'm not going to watch that boat with them. I'm just kidding. But yeah, I had heard a little bit. I got all my stuff jerked out of the house, so I don't get to watch too much stuff anymore. Plus being on the road all the time. But yeah, I'd heard that. Somebody told me that they were doing a lot better than people thought they would. So that's good.
You gonna be in Carolina Saturday?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll watch it together.
Done. We'll do that. All right, cool. All right, well, everybody, we really appreciate you guys watching these. We really appreciate the feedback. More importantly, I think there's definitely, and throughout this series that we've done, there's always some things you can pick up on to do your job safer, and that's really what we're about. So you guys be careful out there, all right, and all the people that support y'all, God bless them, all the people that are keeping you out there in the field. So so just thank everybody. We appreciate you guys, and we will. I might see you at North Carolina Meter School.